Hello everybody, I'm Perry. Today I'm with Eddie Stone, the founder and the CEO of Touchstone Essentials. Hello Eddie.
Hi Perry, good morning to you, or I should say good evening. Glad to be with you today.
Okay, I'm glad to be with you too, Eddie. Eddie, today what health tips you want to share with us?
I thought we would build off of our themes that we started a couple of weeks ago, where we were talking about the gut and the health of the stomach. Last week's theme, we talked a lot about antacids and different ways you can try to avoid them, which includes limiting processed foods and things like that. And I know the audience probably thinks I sound like a broken record on that, but that's a really serious way to address a lot of the things we have in terms of health problems. But today we'll be a little more specific about the subject of the belly bloat. And for anybody that does any kind of traveling or gets out of their routine, they probably know exactly what we're talking about. You just feel bloated, and it kind of makes you tired and uncomfortable, and you look in the mirror and you think, that's not really my belly. And so we're going to talk a little bit about belly bloat.
I'm having this problem too, Eddie.
It's pretty common. Anybody with a really busy lifestyle and not really focused on these kind of things can really suffer from it. So, one day you wake up and you feel like you're fat, the next day you wake up and you feel fine, and you wonder, what was the difference? So we'll talk a little bit after we answer our questions. We'll talk about belly bloat.
Okay, I should first start the question from William K. Okay, I tried to get Zeolite at the health food store. The trusted store owner claimed that they won't sell it due to its high aluminum content.
I really appreciate William bringing this up, because we talked about this just a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And it's one of the more common questions that we get. And I think it's because it's just difficult. We're, as regular people, right, we're not really biochemists, and biochemistry can be a little bit difficult to get our head around. And for more detailed responses, for anybody that's curious, if you go to our website, thegoodinside.com, and you click on either the Pure Body or the Pure Body Extra, in the FAQ section on those pages, you'll see a lot of these common questions that we get. And so here's one of the questions, and this goes to what William is asking about. And I also saw some comments in the comments section on one of our shows a couple of weeks ago. So the question is Zeolite, if Zeolite is formed from silicon and aluminum, can the aluminum be released into the body? And the answer is unequivocally, proven science, no. There's no way that the aluminum that's a part of the molecular structure of the zeolite can be broken down and released into the body. There is no free aluminum in the zeolite, or certainly the zeolite that we sell. And so, just to be clear, one of the reasons that we take the steps of testing our products at the time of harvest, or mining, I should say, and then during the production process, is to make sure that it's free of what's called available heavy metals. And that's not just aluminum, but it'd be cadmium, lead, mercury. Remember, it's a sponge. It does a really good job of binding to those heavy metals. And so we go through a process where we clean it, tease those things out of there. They're gone. You can see in the testing that it's gone. And so the only thing that remains is what aluminum would be a part of its structure that's just simply not available, and based upon numerous tests. And so I can say to William and anybody else with full confidence and full command of the science that there's no way that the aluminum that's part of the structure is available. It's just a molecular structure. And remember this, that in the body, the zeolite is indestructible. It's neither water soluble or fat soluble, and the structure itself can withstand heat. So there's just no way for you to break that down and it become available. I know people say, well, maybe it could. No, it absolutely cannot. And so what you're looking for is to buy a zeolite that's cleaned. So the store owner in this case may have been offering William some caution, because maybe William was thinking about like a powdered zeolite. Maybe that's all that the store owner is familiar with, is a powdered zeolite that's never been cleaned. And so it may have, just like a sponge that's dirty, it may have soaked up some aluminum or cadmium or mercury. And so that's why, again, as we've talked about, we clean it, because we don't want that to be available there. So hopefully that will help William understand, and then go to the website to learn more.
Okay, thank you, Eddie. And the next question, sorry, Zeolite for pets, how many drops for a 10 to 15 pounds dog?
Well, with almost any body size from a pet standpoint, you probably want to use 2 or 3 drops each time. My daughter has a cat. We've got a dog that weighs about 35 pounds. And so whether it's the cat that weighs, say, 9 to 10 pounds that we give 2 or 3 drops to, or even the 30-pound dog we give 2 or 3 drops to. But what we then do is we don't give it as frequently as we would a person. And so instead of, a person 3 times a day, 3 or 4 drops, when we're talking about something with a body size of 10, 15, 20, 25 pounds, it would be 2 or 3 drops only once a day, maybe twice if the pet was having some type of reaction to something. I know we've had some people communicate with us that their pet went to the yard to use the bathroom and ate a poisonous mushroom. And certainly you read about these things all the time where particularly dogs are vulnerable because they'll eat those mushrooms and it literally poison their system and cause their kidney and liver to shut down, and they'll give them zeolite. And so on 1 or 2 occasions, I've heard people say that their pet responded favorably and actually survived the poison mushroom, but that's not sort of an indication. That's just an anecdotal reference to some of the stories we've heard over time. So to the question, I think 2 or 3 drops, and then 1 time a day is probably plenty to make sure it's available.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Eddie, next question still. Sorry, about zeolite. For a person who will have cancer, Eddie, from the weed killer, for example, can he or can this person use zeolite?
Well, they're probably referencing one of the lawsuits that was recently discussed in the news in the United States where someone was able to successfully sue Monsanto and try to draw a link between the cancer they developed and the use of the pesticide Roundup. And I think there's a lot of people that have genuine concern about some of these chemicals that we sort of just haphazardly use right in our yard or sometimes even in our homes, and we don't really know what these effects can be. And so I do understand the concern from that. We cannot say that zeolite will cure or treat cancer. That's just not something we can say. It's a nutritional product and not a drug by any means. And in terms of how it would affect something like a person that's been poisoned by Roundup or something of that kind, you just have to remember in those cases, those are volatile organics, and we know that zeolites can help to get rid of volatile organics. And so the way I look at it is this. There's no contraindication, and there's no research to suggest that zeolite would somehow interfere with a person being treated for cancer. And what we do know is that people that have used it during their course of traditional chemo or radiation therapy or whatever happens to be, that they've been better able to tolerate the treatment. One of the challenges for people that go through the cancer treatment is it's almost like a race to kill the cancer or poison the cancer before you kill the host. And it can be very difficult. You hear about people that lose their appetite and they're nauseous and they lose their hair. And so what we've just seen is that people that focus on nutrition, including detox and using things like zeolite, we've had them report to us they've just been better able to tolerate their treatments, and they felt like that they were more successful because of that. So that's the advice I can offer there. I do think it's an excellent reminder to do what you can to avoid pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, things like this in terms of on your hands or that you're breathing while you're using them. I think there's just some real questions about what that can do to us in the soil and the air.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Eddie, now we can go back to belly bloat.
And belly bloat's interesting, right? It's probably one of the least sexy subjects we could talk about on the call, but it's real. It's something we all have to deal with, and almost everybody listening has probably had that one meal that it can really affect. And so I've got a little list here of things to think about, but one to mention that is a little more complicated. But if you're a person that has a chronic issue with belly bloat, let's say, for example, you eat a meal and you've noticed that even a couple hours later, 3 hours later, you really still feel like that meal is in your belly. And that's not the way it's supposed to be, right? Under normal circumstances, within an hour, your stomach you should feel like the primary digestion work is done. And so the sort of weight of the meal should be diminishing within an hour. And if that's not the case, then there may be some issues associated with your digestion, but most likely it's the foods that you combined and how they interacted. And remember, we're all different, so it's hard to say these rules are the same for every person out there. But there's a lot of research that stems back to England in the late 1950s and early 1960s, and since then has been discussed and studied around the world, where people talk about the impact of food combining. And if a person went to Google and they searched for food combining, they could find all kinds of information out there. And it can be certainly very, very complicated, but here's just a couple of things to keep in mind. If you have a meal that, say, has an animal protein with it, some animal fat, and some carbohydrates, one of the things we now know is that if those carbohydrates are simple, they turn into sugars more quickly in the gut than the breaking down of the fats and the proteins, and they'll actually sit on top of that food and begin to ferment, and that creates gas and bloating. This often happens when people eat dessert. Now, I'm not going to try to go against the advice of your mom or dad not to eat your dessert first, but when you have your dessert, particularly if it's a fruit dessert, after a meal of some size, say with legumes or with greens, or that has some avocados, some fats, or even animal proteins, when you then have that dessert after, that dessert is going to break down in really just a matter of minutes, but it has nowhere to go because that meal you just ate has to evacuate out of the gut first. And so literally it sits on top and it ferments and it bubbles. And so you burp and your belly expands from gas, and you can even develop flatulence from it. And so belly bloating really starts for most people with the combination of foods. Now, not every person will have that experience. Probably about 85% of the global population has that challenge if they have a simple carbohydrate after they have eaten a meal. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The way you can combat this, not only by sort of changing the diet, if I'm going to have something like fruit before I eat, I usually try to have my fruit 20 to 30 minutes ahead of time. And then that way that's already going to be digested, probably evacuated out of the stomach, so that if I go to have my protein or whatever happens to be that's heavier, not going to break down as fast, it's already out of my gut. So that's one strategy to have. The second one is to be conscious of making sure probiotics are in your diet. And we have probiotics, a really nice dose of probiotics in both the Super Greens Plus D and our Super Green Juice, and we use a combination of both spore former and non-spore former, and they're terrific because they can live off of this gas or this mix that's being created by this fermenting of the fruits. And so probiotics are important, but it's not just that you take them. I encourage people to eat foods that are rich in probiotics. So anytime that you're eating a fermented food, such as, say, kimchi or miso, which is popular in Japan, those are fermented foods with probiotics in them. Yogurts, Greek yogurts are terrific. I'm a big fan of the no-fat, plain Greek yogurts. You know, cut up your own fruit maybe to put in there if you're looking for that flavor. But those combination of enzymes and probiotics you find in there do a terrific job of helping to fight the bloat. You can then take digestive enzymes. I imagine most places around the world it's pretty commonly available to be able to find digestive enzymes. I prefer to see people use digestive enzymes that are plant-based instead of animal-based. We sell a product called Green Energy that goes into that category. Its primary focus is on proteolytic enzymes, but it's got bromine in it, other things that will help to break down the foods and can be used as a digestive enzyme. And then you can look at certain teas. For example, ginger. Ginger tea is known to be terrific in helping to soothe a disgruntled belly, and that sort of brings some peace in the belly environment. And so that's pretty easy for most people to access, and so a ginger tea can provide relief. And then other things to think about as we sort of wrap this up is just be conscious of the types of foods you consume. If you can consume organic foods, fruits and vegetables, there's less likely to have pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, and other pollutants that can interfere with the digestive process and slow it down and cause those fermentations. And then just as likely also can be excess use of table salt. The processed portions of that table salt, where the minerals now have been sort of removed from it, maybe some iodine was added back to it, but that also can impact your ability to digest. I mean, remember that in days of old, they used salt when people were trying to cross the ocean to preserve meats and cheeses and other things, and so salt can have almost a preservative type environment, which gets in the way of digestion and breakdown. And so if you're eating a processed food diet with a lot of salt, not very much fiber, you're not conscious of it being organic, it's just conventional, and your combinations are wrong, you'll probably have the belly bloat all the time. You might even need the antacids, but these are little simple practices that you can use to have a very positive outcome. So that's what I wanted to share today. I hope that makes sense for everybody. And of course, if we have any lingering questions, I'm happy to discuss them as frequently as we need to help people really get an understanding of the zeolite and the fact that it's clean.
Eddie, and how about this 10 days challenge to lose weight? Can be the belly bloat too, right? I am interested.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And so for those that have already tried the 10-day challenge that are listening, I'm sure you can, hopefully you're nodding your head along with us as we're having this conversation. But what you'll find is that by taking the 10-day challenge, which is pretty simple, it's a shake in the morning and it's a shake at noon for most people. Now you could switch the order up, but that's the general idea. In our case, we're encouraging people to combine the greens and the vegan protein. Those things they work well together, they'll digest well together. If they want to put some fruit with it or even some peanut butter or some almond butter, that's okay too, because the animal protein, or there's no animal protein in it, so the plant proteins break down so easily, there should be no problem with that fermentation sitting in the belly. And if you're doing that a couple times a day and then trying to eat sensibly at night for 10 days, it's somewhat of a cleanse. It's a way to give sort of a break to the digestive process. I think I've mentioned before that one of the most energy-consuming things that you do all day is the digestion of food. And unless you're an athlete with special types of workouts, it's probably as much as 40% of your energy output comes from just digesting, breaking down foods, extracting nutrients, getting rid of the waste. And so if you make it simpler, and you would refer to these shakes as almost like a pre-digested meal because you don't have to chew them. And they're simple in terms of their molecular makeup, so they break down quite easily in the gut. Most people will find almost immediately within a day, their belly bloat goes down and they've got a heck of a lot more energy. So hopefully that makes sense, and I hope to see more people taking the challenge. If you're not using our products, that's okay. Just taking a 10-day challenge on occasion to get away and sort of pump the brakes on processed food is a good idea.
You mean for this challenge, we replace 2 meals with your protein, right?
That's right. So mixing the greens and the protein, substitute those out for most cases it's going to be breakfast and lunch, and so you're just going to have a leaner diet, a cleaner diet for a 10-day period of time.
Okay, that sounds good, Eddie. And Eddie, because me, a person, like I'm always get hungry between meals. What can I eat between meals?
Well, so one thing to remember is if you're following the protocol of our challenge, one of the things that's included in that pack is one of our Boost Focus Fuel products. So it's a capsule, and so each a serving is 3 capsules, and it breaks down to about 30-35 milligrams of caffeine per capsule, right? So it's not a lot. It's about 2 to say 3 ounces of drip coffee, but it also has a dark chocolate in it, which has a lot of theobromine in it. Those 2 things will be terrific. 1, in positively impacting metabolism, but 2, most people tell us they're not as hungry. And so it's a designed part of the program, right, to give you some help in between meals so you don't want to snack. But if you need to snack, be conscious that it's not a high glycemic food. I encourage people to make snacks out of things that are generally raw. So raw nuts are a terrific in-between the meal snack. I'm almost addicted to raw almonds. That's kind of my in-between snack that I go to, but of course I like some raw peanuts as well. Raw fruits and vegetables that are low glycemic, and so if people don't know the glycemic index, you can Google it, look online for what a certain food is, but I'll give you an example. A banana is highly glycemic because it breaks down really fast and will cause your blood sugars to rise. That's not a good in-between snack, because most likely your blood sugar goes up so fast that you're hungry again after your body sort of gets rid of all that glucose in the bloodstream. And so that's why our insulin comes into play. And so that's probably not a good idea. But an apple, because of its structure and the peel, it's not high glycemic relative to the banana. And so your body will take longer to break that down, and so you'll find the satisfaction of, say, a good apple versus a banana. And nutritionally, there's great things in a banana, but in this case, we're trying to manage our in-between meal snacking. That apple is going to last longer, and it'll be more effective in helping control your blood sugar. Another one to consider is the difference between, say, celery as a vegetable snack versus a carrot. Celery is very fibrous, and I'll admit, it's not the most flavorful thing in the world, but if you're trying to curb your appetite and fill your belly up, you can fill up on a belly full of celery. You've not got too many calories. It's not going to make your glucose go up, so it's not high glycemic. But a carrot, and carrots are fun. They're everywhere in the States you go, you see these little baby carrots for people to nibble on. But a carrot's a very high glycemic food. It's sort of in that same relationship to the banana as the celery is to the apple. And so just be conscious of processed foods in between meals or high glycemic foods. And if you stay away from that, I'm confident you're going to have some great results.
Okay, Eddie, thank you very much for
thank
today.
You, Mary, and
thank you for being here.
For listening.
Okay,
Yep.
so I see you again next time, okay? Next
Yes,
Tuesday.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for watching, everybody, and tomorrow meet you with Ken Dan. Bye-bye.